God bless the city of Chicago. And God bless the United States of America. What a blessing to be here. I'm going to commit a radical act. I'm going to speak the truth. America is great. The Taliban are terrorists. The Chinese Communist Party are evil bastards. Christopher Columbus discovering America was a good thing. Our founding fathers were extraordinary heroes. George Washington was an extraordinary hero. Thomas Jefferson was an extraordinary hero. Abraham Lincoln was an extraordinary hero. Police officers keep us safe. Israel is our friend. The Wuhan virus came from Wuhan. And there is a difference between boys and girls. I want you to pause and think that every one of those statements 5 years ago would have been utterly unobjectionable. No one would have noticed. Everyone would have reacted, well, obviously. And right now, any one of those can get you silenced, can get you fired, can get you banned from social media, can get you canceled. Our country has gone stark raving nuts. The Democrats in Washington are bat crap crazy. That, by the way, is a technical medical term. If you look it up in the medical dictionary, it's under B for bat. Whole lot of that, too. I'm here tonight with a word of encouragement. I'm here tonight with a word of exhortation, a word of hope. I've got two key points. Point number one, America is in crisis. Washington has always been bad, but it has gone off the deep end. They're spending trillions of dollars. They're trying to raise taxes by trillions of dollars. The debt is going up trillions of dollars. Joe Biden wants to give every illegal immigrant $450,000. By the way, I suggested a really good solution. We ought to just give every one of them a Hunter Biden painting instead. Look, it keeps him busy, him out of trouble. And think about it. If you came here illegally and you were given one of those, you'd turn around and go home. Our southern border is absolute chaos. It's always been bad, but it's never been remotely this bad. We're on a path for over 2 million people to cross illegally this year. Several months ago, I took 19 senators down to the southern border, to the Rio Grande Valley, to see firsthand what's happening there. We went to the Biden cages. How many of y'all remember for the last 4 years the Democrats and the media going on and on and on about kids in cages, kids in cages, kids in cages? That's true. What they never told you is the cages were built by Barack Obama, and today the cages are bigger and more full than they've ever been. I've been down to the Biden cages on any given day, over 4,000 people, mostly little boys and little girls, on top of each other. A rate of COVID positivity of over 24%. And as bad as the domestic policy is, as bad as the economic policy is, the foreign policy is even worse. It's almost as if they took a map of every enemy of America and decided, let's crawl on our knees and kiss their backsides. We have a president who shows weakness and appeasement to Russia, to China, to Iran, to every enemy of America, and abandons our friends and allies. And in Afghanistan, we saw the greatest foreign policy and national security disaster in a generation. Joe Biden said, we don't leave anybody behind, and then he turned and cut and ran and left Americans behind. It was a disgrace, and I want to take a minute actually to speak to any veterans who are here today. I've spent a lot of time since Afghanistan talking to veterans, and I've heard from veterans who feel angry, who feel demoralized, who wonder about the time they spent, who wonder about the friends that didn't come home, the time and treasure and sacrifice, and they wonder, what was it worth it? And I want to tell every veteran in this room, especially those men and women who served in Afghanistan, your service was worth it. It made a difference, and you helped keep America safe. But it's never been this nuts. So some of y'all may be thinking, wait a second, Ted, you said you had a word of encouragement. You're pretty bad at this. But there's a second part of the message. Revival is coming. Look, if you look throughout history in America, politics has always had a natural pendulum nature to it. One party gets in power, they go too far one direction, the American people say, hold on a second, move it on back. The other party gets in, they go too far the other direction, the American people say, hold on a second, come on back here. Well, I'm here to tell you that is happening all over the country. People's eyes are opening up. Anyone notice what happened in Virginia this week? What a spectacular, spectacular thing. And I got to say, Terry McAuliffe, it really couldn't have happened to a nicer guy. Look, are y'all familiar with the term schadenfreude? Taking joy in the suffering of others. Look, it's not a nice sentiment. But all right, am I the only person in this room who in November of 2016 enjoyed watching MSNBC? Enjoyed watching Rachel Maddow staring into the camera going, this nightmare can't be real. I had it on DVR, so I kept rewinding it, hitting play again. Well, I got to tell you, in Washington, Wednesday, after Virginia, you saw Democrats scared out of their mind. Cockroaches are consistent. And not only Virginia. Did anyone notice what happened in New Jersey? The president of the New Jersey Senate lost to a truck driver who spent $153. By the way, I looked it up right before I came out here. You know, the Democrats' margin in 2020 in New Jersey was identical to the Democrats' margin in Illinois. Now look, y'all are a hardy bunch. You're conservatives in Chicago. You are used to being surrounded by crazy, corrupt communists. I just want to point out in bright blue New Jersey, and by the way, they know something about crazy, corrupt communists. On election night, the election this week was tied. People's eyes are opening up. Think about it. 5 years ago, Bernie Sanders was the lone admitted socialist in the Senate. He was the only one who'd say, nope, I'm not a Democrat, I'm a socialist. And the rest of the Democrats would say, no, we're not with him. Today, Bernie Sanders is the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. And the number one priority of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi is passing Bernie Sanders' socialist budget. This is crazy. You want to understand how crazy it is? Why did we win in Virginia? We won in Virginia because a whole lot of people looked at what was happening in Washington and said, this is not what we were promised. Look, Joe Biden campaigned, well, okay, he sat in his basement. But in his basement, he promised to be a reasonable centrist moderate. He said, no more mean tweets, and we're going to go back to the calm days of yesteryear. And there were some Americans for whom that was appealing. And then he got into office and he handed the agenda over to Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and AOC. And you know what? There were a whole bunch of folks in Virginia that said, wait a second, we didn't sign up for the socialist takeover of America. We didn't sign up for chaos and open borders. We didn't sign off for disaster and surrender and retreat in Afghanistan. And if Virginia was decided by one group, it was decided by parents. It was decided by moms and dads who were pissed off. And I'll tell you, if there's one place that decided Virginia, it was Loudoun County. You look at the absolute tragedy of what unfolded in Loudoun County, where a 14-year-old girl was violently raped in the bathroom by a boy wearing a skirt. And the school then covered it up because those facts were inconvenient for their political agenda. They transferred the boy to another school where the predator, to the surprise of nobody, assaulted another girl. Then the father of the first girl went to that school board meeting. And he was pissed. And you know what? If that was your little girl who'd been raped at school, you'd be pissed. And the school board stood up and they lied. They said there's never been a sexual assault in our bathrooms. They said we've never had a boy dressed as a girl commit a sexual assault. Those were flat out lies. 2 weeks ago, the Virginia court found him guilty of violent rape. And the school board accused the father of being a liar. and they threw him to the ground. They forcibly handcuffed him and arrested him. And then the National Association of School Boards sent a letter to President Biden accusing that dad and moms and dads throughout the country of being domestic terrorists. And then 5 days later, the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, sent a letter to the Department of Justice and the FBI saying, target those parents for daring to speak up at school boards. Now, about a week ago, Merrick Garland came to testify for the Judiciary Committee. And I gently questioned him. Truth is, that was gentle. Look, to listen to the National Association of School Boards, they got so much pressure, they had their members quitting, that they publicly retracted their letter. They were embarrassed and they apologized for it, as they should be. But I got to tell you, it was striking with Garland, because he knows the difference between law and politics. At that hearing, I asked him, I said, all right, sir, you based your instruction to the Department of Justice on this letter from the National Association of School Boards. How many incidents did that letter cite? I don't know. Oh, you don't know? Okay. Well, I counted them. There were 20. How many of them were violent? I don't know. You don't know. Did you look? No. Did anyone in your staff look? No. The 20 all have footnotes. Did you look up what they footnoted? No. One of them was Loudoun County. Did you look up the facts of Loudoun County? No. Do you know what happened in Loudoun County? No. Did you look into the fact that this man's daughter had been raped at school and the school covered it up? Nope, didn't know anything about it. Took 5 days to direct the Department of Justice and FBI to treat parents as domestic terrorists. It wasn't law, it was politics. It was Joe Biden's political cronies are upset that parents are going to school boards saying, stop teaching garbage to our kids. Stop teaching critical race theory. Stop lying to our children. Stop dividing us based on race. Stop tearing us apart. And stop covering up sexual predators who are endangering our children. And in response to all of that, Terry McAuliffe's response was, parents have no business telling schools what to teach our kids. You know, there's an old line that a gaffe is when a politician tells you what he actually thinks. That one sentence, more than anything else, elected a Republican governor in the state of Virginia. And people are waking up all over this country. November 2022 is going to be a wave election like 2010 was. By the way, 2010, Illinois elected a Republican senator. He didn't vote for Chuck Schumer. In 2022, we're going to retire Nancy Pelosi. In 2022, we're going to retire Chuck Schumer. You know, I'm looking forward to January of 2023, walking down the hallway of the Capitol and bumping into a little man in overalls, carrying a screwdriver, coming to change the sign on Nancy Pelosi's office. And Nancy's going to get on her broom. All right, that's mean. That's mean. She's going to get on her private jet called the USS Broom and fly on back to California. And Schumer's going to head to New York, and then we're going to tell Joe Biden it's 2025, and he's just going to go back to Delaware. People are waking up, and it's powerful. You know, there's an old line that history doesn't repeat, but sometimes it rhymes. How many of y'all here are old enough to remember Jimmy Carter? A lot of folks. None of the women, but the men, some of the men here I see are old enough to remember Carter. To remember double-digit unemployment, 22% interest rates, gas lines around the block, our hostages languishing in Iran for 444 days, while the president wrung his hands in weakness, sending a military team to rescue them that crashed in the desert with no opposing fire. Some of us remember the president putting on a sweater, saying, turn down your thermostat, and accept malaise that America can't compete with the Soviet Union. Now, why does that analogy give me so much joy? I'll tell you right now today, this is an aside, but it's worth it. Right now today in Georgia, Jimmy Carter is there going, yes, not worst president ever. It took Jimmy Carter to give us Ronald Reagan. And I am convinced that the most long-lasting legacy of the disaster that is Joe Biden. That would work. Is going to be a revival in this country, a return to common sense conservative values, a return of freedom. You know, we've seen in the past 2 years the petty tyrants that Democrats are. A time of crisis reveals character. And we've seen Democrats all across this country shutting down businesses, destroying restaurants, destroying stores, destroying bars. By the way, they let the giant big boxes survive, the big boys. If you're a giant corporation, the Democrats love you. If you're a mom and pop store, maybe a generational store started by your grandparents, they put you out of business with the stroke of a pen. We saw tens of millions of kids sent home. Remember 15 days to stop the spread? That became a year and longer. And we are seeing the petty tyranny. Look, in California, the Democrats sent in bulldozers to fill a skate park with sand because they didn't want teenagers to ride skateboards. Now, let me ask you, given that, how hard is it to convey the message to our kids that Democrats suck? Look, we're now seeing the illegal and abusive vaccine mandates across this country. Joe Biden is a lawless tyrant. Now, let me be clear. When it comes to vaccines, I'm pro-vaccine. I've been vaccinated. My family's been vaccinated. I'm grateful for Operation Warp Speed that developed vaccines really quickly and cut through a ton of paperwork to do it. But I also believe in individual choice and individual responsibility and freedom. You're adults. You got the right to make your own decision about your own health care, to talk to your own doctor, and do what you damn well think is right. And these petty tyrants have no business trying to force people to comply. You think about it right now across the country. I'm hearing from people all over the country. Doctors and nurses who are being fired because of the vaccine mandate. We're in the midst of a pandemic, so it's a great idea to fire thousands of doctors and nurses. Airline pilots and air traffic controllers. Has anyone noticed in the last month how every week it seems thousands of flights are canceled and then thousands of flights are canceled? And the media says this has got nothing to do with the vaccine mandate. We're seeing soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines. I've talked to Navy SEALs who've spent 10 years or more defending this nation, who are resigning from the U.S. military rather than submit to this vaccine mandate. New York City, the firefighters union is standing up fighting. Just a few years ago, they were the heroes of 9/11. Now the Democrats are saying, fire the firefighters. I'll tell you right now, I stand with the New York Firefighters Union. And I got to tell you, when I landed here in Chicago, I was met by a phalanx of Chicago police officers. They gave me their patch. And I'll tell you this, I'm proud to stand with the Chicago Police Union. You know, we've got some reporters here. I want to make sure the reporters notice that every person in the room stood to their feet, cheering for the members of the Chicago Police Union. And I told those officers, as I travel the country, I said, look, I want you to know millions of Americans are with you. They're standing with you. They're praying for you. They're thankful to you. And the garbage you're dealing with from idiot politicians, the American people are grateful for your courage in keeping us safe. And just 2 weeks ago, Joe Biden was asked about Chicago police officers. Over a third of the police officers haven't filed their vaccination status. Biden was asked, he said, fire anyone that doesn't get vaccinated. The President of the United States is saying, fire 1/3 of the Chicago Police Department. And by the way, last week when the Attorney General testified, I asked him, I said, General Garland, you're the Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States. Do you agree with Joe Biden that Chicago should fire 1/3 of its cops? Merrick Garland, da, 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 da. He wouldn't answer. He said, well, that's a decision for Chicago. Well, their mayor's a numbskull. But look, I'm not sure who the next mayor of Chicago is going to be, but I'm pretty sure it's a guy named Brandon. I don't know if you happen to have seen, there's a fantastic meme online. It's Obama and Biden in the Oval Office. And Biden leans forward and goes, Barack, it's amazing. People all over the country want to have sex with me. And Obama goes, Joe, I don't think that's what that means. You want to talk about a spontaneous outpouring. It's powerful. And so listen, how do we pull it back? We pull it back by telling the truth. The truth is powerful. By the way, when it comes to masks, every Democrat knows it's a pile of crap. They know they're lying. How many of y'all saw Nancy Pelosi at her fundraiser in San Francisco sitting there with rich Democrats, not a mask to be seen anywhere? Now, mind you, they make the serving staff wear masks, which is a typical Democratic condescension of the little people who are serving us food and drinks. They need to be masked. But we masters of the universe don't need to worry about it. God bless the men and women who have served today and provided the food and hospitality, and we are grateful for you. We remember Barack Obama and Martha's Vineyard at his 60th birthday party, dancing away, not a mask to be seen. By the way, I'll tell you, in the Senate, when the Democrats in the Senate, when the doors are closed, they take their damn mask off. They know it's ridiculous. But then if a TV camera shows up, oh crap, better put my mask on. Because, you know, the virus is connected to TV cameras. You know, it's also the case, if you're at a restaurant, you walk in the restaurant, you got to have your mask on. You sit down, you can take your mask off. So I'm not sure, it is either an altitude thing or it's connected to how tight your thigh muscles are. You can eat, drink, spit, laugh, yell, no problem. You get up to go to the bathroom, put your mask on. 2 feet higher, everyone's going to die. Look, you get 50,000 people in the streets for a Black Lives Matter protest, you can scream all day long, no danger. You go to church or synagogue, sing one hymn, everyone dies. This weekend, Chuck Schumer was down in Puerto Rico, partying with no mask. Now, I do have to pause for one moment and say, thank you, Lord. Schumer was not in a bathing suit. We've suffered enough these last 2 years. There's some images that just should not be inflicted upon us. But you know who was down there partying too? Is Randy Weingarten, the head of the teachers union. By the way, the teachers union's insisting that all our kids have to wear masks no matter what. Randy was partying with, guess what? No mask. So right before I got up, I was on Twitter, and she said, well, I took my mask off because people were having a hard time hearing me, so I had to take my mask off. Like, oh, okay, that explains it. Look, this hypocrisy, people get it. Truth is powerful. All we have to do is tell the truth and also be happy warriors. You know, the left right now, they're so angry. They're so shrill. How many leftists does it take to screw in a light bulb? That's not funny! Like we just respond with laughter, with joy. There's this bizarre meme online. It's a picture of me. And it says, Ted Cruz ate my son. So I retweeted it. I said, he was delicious. By the way, when I told the light bulb joke at another time, someone in the back of the room called out, well, how many leftists does it take? I said, actually, nobody knows, because that would require work. But look, we need to have fun, we need to laugh, and we need to go around the corrupt corporate media. Look, the media is broken. They are professional liars. They are partisan. In fact, they're not just partisan. They're not just Democrats. They're the left wing of the Democratic Party. So we need to go around them. We need to go straight to the American people. Loudoun County, that story was, of course, broken by the New York Times, right? No. Washington Post? ABC, NBC, CNN? It's the Daily Wire that broke it. It's a conservative outlet that stepped in and said, if our fake so-called journalists aren't going to do their jobs, we're actually going to cover real facts. Last year, I launched a podcast. It's called Verdict with Ted Cruz. We launched it on the first day of the impeachment trial. The end of every day in trial, we'd be in the Senate, we'd be there till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. I'd get in a truck, I'd head to the studio, I'd record immediately after the trial, put it out. Within just a few weeks, we became the #1 ranked podcast in the world. We've had over 30 million downloads. We put it out every week. Every week, I get more viewers than CNN's morning show. So I want to ask every one of you to do something. All right, if you're under 40, go subscribe to the podcast. If you're over 40, find your kids, find your grandkids, get them to subscribe you to the podcast. But we need to go around the corrupt corporate media, communicate, and pull the country back. I want to end with this. Look, the men and women here, y'all are resilient. You're tough. If you cared about peer pressure, you wouldn't be conservatives in Chicago. The easy thing to do is give in with the numbskulls. I'm going to tell you something, though. There are a lot more people with sense around here than you think that are quiet. Look, when I go to blue states, when I go to Illinois, when I go to New Jersey, when I go to New York, when I go to California, they'll come and seek me out. And I see them, and they're kind of, the Californians, it's almost like they have Stockholm Syndrome or something. And they're like, I'm the only one. And it's like, no, you're not. There is a silent majority Reminds me in the 3rd and 4th centuries, when the Christians in the Roman Colosseums, right about to be fed to the lions, would carve out with their toe the shape of a fish to signal to someone else, wait a second, you're one too? I promise you in Chicago, there are people you work with, there are people on your street, there are people in your neighborhood, there are people in your church that realize as you do just how crazy this is. And they're afraid to say it, but they know. That's a powerful thing. And so I want to commend you for having the courage, because when you speak out, others are listening. And I think the stakes right now in our country, they've never been higher. Got to tell you, I wake up every day thrilled to go to work, because we're fighting to save our country. You know, my father was born in Cuba. And in Cuba, when my dad was a teenager, he fought in the Cuban Revolution. And he was imprisoned. He was tortured in Cuba. They beat him almost to death. My dad fled Cuba in 1957. He was 18. He had nothing, had $100 in his underwear. And he couldn't speak English. He came to Austin, Texas. He washed dishes making 50 cents an hour. You know, I want to speak to the folks who are tending bar, who are serving tonight, who are washing dishes in the back. When my dad was washing dishes, the reason he had that job, he couldn't speak English, and you didn't have to speak English to wash dishes. He could do that in any language. If someone had told that kid that 50 years hence his son would be a United States Senator representing the state of Texas, that teenage immigrant could not have imagined that. It was beyond anything that he could have envisioned. And in 2013, when I stood on the Senate floor and I took the oath of office, I was holding in my hand my father's Bible. And sitting in the gallery was my dad with tears running down his face. Only in America. My father's doing great. He's 82. He's filled with energy and passion. And when I was a kid, my dad used to say to me over and over again, he said, when we lost our freedom in Cuba, we had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? That's why we're here. That's why we don't give up. That's why we're standing and fighting, because America is worth fighting for. This country is worth saving. Our rights are worth saving. Our freedoms are worth saving. The Constitution is worth saving. The Bill of Rights is worth saving. Free enterprise is worth saving. The hopes and dreams of our kids and grandkids are worth saving. The United States of America, together we will save, we will pull back, we will preserve that shining city on a hill that is the United States of America. God bless you.